Recently, I decided that I wanted to beat Hollow Knight again, but seeing as that I've already done a low percent speedrun, I needed a new challenge. I figured that it was time to put the max in this channel's name to use, and to complete an all-achievement speedrun. Something that has only been completed and submitted by 10 people. So what is it that these titans of Hollow Knight have that I don't? Oh, that's right, skill. But what I have is an unbridled ego, vastly overestimated gamer skills, and a YouTube channel that I'm trying to grow. So you should like and subscribe if you haven't already. Now, Hollow Knight actually has a lot of achievements. 63 in fact. Some of which, at the time of writing this intro, I have never actually completed. And this speedrun requires that I unlock all of these in one sitting. Note that I do not say one playthrough. There are a grand total of 3 pairs of achievements that are mutually exclusive. This means that my run will be split across 2 different playthroughs, just to add to my fun. I'm not gonna lie, the first thing that I did when preparing for this run was to go to speedrun.com and find the route notes that people who are way better at this game than me have made. The one problem with this is that there is in fact a lot of assumed knowledge, like what the map looks like. I have none of this, so I went through the guide and modified it to suit me, drawing an 80-part map, which you can find through the link in the description below. Still, this was not a challenge that I could complete on my first attempt. The first run begins in classic mode, nothing special here, just running through King's Pass and failing a skip literally 30 seconds in. But considering that my notes say that this is an over 6-hour speedrun, I am not going to lose sleep over a 5-second mistake. I make my way to Dirtmouth and make sure to speak to the Elderbug, since people were very mad at me last time for ignoring the elderly. With my community service out of the way, I head through the Forgotten Crossroads as quickly as possible, while still making sure to collect enough geo to open the Stag Station. With how complex the routing is for this speedrun, I must ensure that all methods of fast travel are unlocked. My first boss fight of the day is a battle with the False Knight. Being the closest thing to a tutorial boss, the False Knight cannot really do anything to stop me. A few hits to his gargantuan armor causes him to stagger and fall. In his rage, he slams the floor as hard as he can, breaking it beneath him and plummeting down, where he can do nothing but watch as I end him. This unlocks my first achievement, Falsehood, and gives me the city crest, an important item that I will put to use shortly. But before that can happen, I first acquire the Vengeful Spirit spell, and complete the Ancestral Mound, pausing to collect the Soulcatcher charm at the end. This nets me the second achievement for this run, Charmed. After escaping from the Ancestral Mound, I head towards Greenpath, where I fail to perform a simple fireball skip. Not once, not twice, but 3 consecutive times. So I have to resort to the backup, pogoing off a nearby enemy. Now, progression through Greenpath is actually pretty straightforward, but I do have to make sure to do one thing. Or more accurately, make sure to specifically not do one thing. And that is rescue Zote, who is being chewed on by the Vengefly King right above me. The reason I do this is not because I'm some heartless, amoral monster. Well, not just because of that, but it is actually to set up for the first group of exclusive achievements. Killing Zote allows me to unlock the Neglect achievement, whereas rescuing him to continue his storyline allows me to unlock the Dark Romance and Rivalry achievements. On the way to Hornet, I save my first grub for the run. There are 46 of these little guys trapped around Hallownest. In this run, I will need to save 31 of them, for reasons I will explain later. After making short work of Hornet, I acquire both the Mothwing Cloak and the Test of Resolve achievement. 12 minutes in, and roughly 5% of achievements unlocked. Surely this won't take me long. Afterwards, I save and quit to warp directly to the Forgotten Crossroads. I then head straight to the Mantis village to acquire the Mantis Claw. This allows me to climb up walls, which in turn allows me to access a much larger portion of the map. With the Claw, I brave my way through the wastes and head towards the City of Tears, briefly stopping to save yet another grub, and hit some phantom spikes. After clearing the Acid Lake, I use the city crest to unlock the gate and enter the city, which really has nothing interesting in it. I save a grub and enter the Soul Sanctum to challenge the Soul Master to glorious combat. Now, you might think that I am glossing over a lot of information, but if I didn't, this video would easily be over 4 hours long. Also, the first playthrough is not anywhere near as involved as the second. For the bulk of this run, Spells are the primary method for me to deal damage, as, at base, my nail deals only 5 damage. The base Vengeful Spirit spell, on the other hand, does 15 damage, and that number only goes up as we progress, so it just makes sense to spam my spells whenever I can. Anyway, defeating the Soul Master gives me access to the Desolate Dive spell, and the Illumination achievement. With nothing left to do here, I begin to exit the Soul Sanctum, collecting some geo from the chest held within, as I will be needing a lot of it throughout this run. I also perform a trick called a Fake Dive, where I dive right on the edge of a destructible floor to break it without falling through. This allows me to save the Soul Sanctum grub a little bit faster, as I do not need to backtrack. Now I leave the Soul Sanctum for real. My next destination is the Crystal Peaks. So I open the Storeroom Stag Station and travel to the Forgotten Crossroads, ensuring that I sit at the bench in the Stag Station. As I move towards the Crystal Peak, I quickly duck off the path to save 2 grubs, one hidden behind a wall, and the other guarded by a large lad. After that, I put my newfound Desolate Dive spell into action and break the floor, giving me access to the Crystal Peaks. Here I navigate through the still functioning industrial mining equipment while I slowly climb the mountain, saving another grub and collecting the shopkeeper's key along the way. I then breeze through the precarious platforming section, which is a welcome change from when I was doing this dash list during low percent. Check out that video if you haven't already, allowing me to collect the Crystal Heart, which I then put to use to save another helpless grub. 2 grubs later, and I head into the dark room. I have simply memorized the path that I need to take through, making sure to utilize movements that will take me a consistent distance across runs. After leaving the darkness, I go in search of a major upgrade to my current moveset, Descending Dark. This upgrade increases the power of my Desolate Dive spell by almost 100%, dealing a maximum of 65 damage per cast without buffs, a whopping 13 times more damage than my base nail. Departing the crystallized mound, I head into the resting grounds and get trapped in a dream. This is where I am guided to the Dream Nail, a key item required to reach any ending. I quickly leave before the seer can regale me with any stories of her past and dive into a crypt to engage in some casual grub saving and grave robbing, just to spice things up. Taking the elevator down to the City of Tears, I unlock the King's Stag Station, one of the most useful stag stations for its proximity to several otherwise isolated areas. This gives me the connection achievement for opening 5 of 11 stag stations. Now you, as a keen and raptured viewer, might have noticed that I've only opened 4 stations so far. Well, Dirtmouth has a stag station that is always unlocked. You simply need to have opened another stag station to access it. Even without visiting, it still counts for the achievement. Now I save and quit to walk to the Forgotten Crossroads bench that I sat at so long ago, and make my way towards the Gruz Mother boss fight. My Descending Dark spell is absurdly overpowered for this boss, so it dies in only 2 casts, and its offspring cannot do anything but follow. This gives me access to Salubra, who I buy the Shaman Stone charm from. This charm provides a large buff to the power of my spells, a 33% damage increase to my Vengeful Spirit, and a whopping 47% increase to my Descending Dark. After leaving Salubra, I save Sly before quit warping back to Dirtmouth to buy the Elegant Key, and once again returning to the City of Tears. After a quick detour to save a guarded grub, I use the Elegant Key to unlock an ornate door within the Soul Sanctum. Inside, I spam Descending Dark to demolish the Soul Warrior, allowing me to obtain the Shade Soul upgrade. This gives me a 100% boost in the damage to my Vengeful Spirit spell. It also makes the projectile move faster and go through walls. Heading through the City of Tears Spire, I challenge the Watcher Knights. In the face of the overwhelming strength of my spells, they crumble. So I take a nearby chest as the spoils of my victory before ascending to Lurien the Watcher's resting place. I quickly kill Lurien and absorb his essence, earning the Watcher achievement and weakening the seal on the black egg which houses the Hollow Knight. I begin my descent down the spire and drop down a dilapidated elevator shaft into the ancient basin. I then clear out the Morlek arena and collect a pale ore. This is a super important item for later. On the way out, I save another grub before unlocking the toll bench and challenging the broken vessel. Descending Dark is all that I need to successfully defeat it, which unlocks the release achievement. I then move further into the basin and collect the Monarch Wings, which allows the knight to double jump. On the way back, I notice that the broken vessel's corpse is glowing. This means that I can dream nail it to challenge the stronger version of the boss, the Lost Kin. As I mentioned earlier, I did not complete this challenge in one try. In my first attempt, this fight took me about an hour to complete even once. In subsequent attempts, however, I would normally complete it in 1 or 2 tries. Today was not a normal day. I died once, twice, 3 times before I realized something. I never actually equipped the Shaman Stone. Now, before anyone comments anything, yes, I know that the Shaman Stone is not 100% necessary, but a 50% increase in my descending dark damage means a 33% reduction in the time it'll take to win, meaning that I do not need to focus for anywhere near as long. So, after exiting to equip the Shaman Stone, I challenged the Lost Kin again and finally triumphed, after several close scrapes. This earned me the Peace achievement, as well as 400 Essence, a currency that allows me to earn several rewards from the Seer later on. As I was leaving the Lost Kin, I saved yet another grub before heading to and unlocking the hidden Stag Station. After a short ride to Greenpath, I retraced my steps back to the Vengefly Arena, where I found the Skull of Zote. Merely seeing the consequences of my own inaction gives me the Neglect achievement. 1 exclusive achievement down, only 2 to go. I continue onwards, deliberately falling into a trapped chest, before completing only half of a fight and fleeing. This takes me into the Howling Cliffs, where I can light the Nightmare Lantern. This lantern summons the Grim Troop to Dirtmouth, which is required for another pair of exclusive achievements down the line. I introduce myself to Grim and make my way to the Fog Canyon, stopping to save the Grub Daddy Grub and the Grub in the Crossroad Acid Room. This room is also where I perform a small acid skip to more quickly access Fog Canyon. By timing a dash just above the surface of the acid, I am then able to immediately hold the jump button, which causes the knight to jump as soon as the dash finishes, allowing me to safely land on the other side. I zoom through the Fog Canyon, barely slowing down, until I make it to the entrance of the Teacher's Archives, home of Monomon. Before entering though, I dash across the room to save a well-hidden grub. Inside the archive, Umu guards Monomon, but with the help of Quirrell and my obscenely overpowered Shade Soul, it dies, as does Monomon. Teacher unlocked. My next destination is the Deep Nest. On the way, I save 2 grubs, one above the entrance to the Deep Nest and another nestled in a group of mimics. This is grub number 23, meaning that I have saved half of all of the trapped grubs in Hallow Nest, earning the Grub Friend achievement. I take a short break at the hot spring before heading left to the Nosk Arena. Nosk is a spindly little guy who impersonates its targets to lure them to their death. Historically, this fight has not gone well for me, but today I am at the top of my game, beating it first try and obtaining another Paylor. Now I have to navigate through the dark rooms, but fortunately I am very skilled. I have had to go through these rooms many times without the Lumifly Lantern already, and now have a firm grasp of their layout. It's a drop here, a jump there, and a pogo here. All of a sudden, I'm in the next room. And there's a grub in here. The problem is, I actually do not know how to get it from this direction. Instead, I pass through the room, leave, and return. There are 2 reasons for this. The first is, I actually know how to get the grub from this side. And the second is that there is a feature of dark rooms that I am now able to use to my advantage. In Hollow Knight, taking damage from environmental hazards, like spikes, causes the knight to respawn at the last safe place he stood. In the dark, this safe space is never updated. So after saving the grub, I can throw myself into spikes and take an express trip right to the exit I need to go forward to the distant village. I enter into the main hall of the village and perform the Beast Den skip. By jumping and dashing at the top of the wall, I am able to jump into a small hole in the roof, skipping the entirety of the Beast's Den. I climb up the back, ambush Hera the Beast, unlocking the Beast achievement, and ensure that I save a grub before leaving. I now have a child to raise, so I equip the Grim Child Charm, which I received from Grim earlier, and head to the storeroom Stag Station to find this torch, which I can feed to my child or something. I do the same thing at Greenpath, before taking the acrobatic entrance towards Crystal Peaks to get the final flame required to level up the Grim Child, before climbing all the way up to the top of the Crystal Peak to get the Paylor at the Hallow Nest's crown. After talking to Grim, my child is given a new attack and another hit list. so I head straight to King's Pass to get to work. After killing my first target, I stag to the King's Station and head to the Kingdom's Edge. This is where I make a minor mistake. Normally, this Grimkin is killed quite high in the room, so you can never leave before the child consumes the flame. But because I fell all the way down, I left the room before my child could actually finish its meal. This meant that I had to go back, climb all the way up to the torch, and kill it again. I am now drawing close to the end of my first playthrough, but before I can begin the final cleanup steps, I need to compete in the Colosseum of Fools, a gauntlet where I need to beat dozens of enemies, one after the other, with very little pause. My first try did not go well, but with perseverance, grit, gusto, and a build change, I was able to overcome something that was honestly not actually all that hard, earning myself the Warrior achievement. Unfortunately, this gave me nothing good. It was merely a stepping stone to allow me to access the second, harder round of the Colosseum, the Trial of the Conqueror. This time, I was able to successfully complete the trial on my first attempt. This gave me both the Conqueror achievement and my 4th Payor. With nothing left to do here, I collect my final flame, receive another Payor from the Seer, which is why I required the essence earlier, before heading to Grim to face him in combat. Now, not to toot my own horn, but this is a fight I am good at. I whittle Grim's health down, making sure to do massive damage with my spells during his pufferfish attack before finally putting him down. This powers up my child again and gives me another 3 targets, but this time I do not need to participate. Instead, I head straight to the distant village to find Brum, who conspires against Grim. He urges me to go back to the Nightmare Lantern in the Howling Cliffs and destroy it. This is another one of the exclusive achievements, Banishment, so I happily go along with it. After waking from the nightmare, I head to the Elder Grub to earn the rewards for my good deeds. During the run, I saved a total of 31 grubs. This is not because I'm a good person or anything, but because for each grub saved, I get given a boatload of money and some other miscellaneous goods. Critically, the 31st reward is the 6th and final Payor, the final requirement for the final pair of exclusive achievements. I head to the City of Tears and quickly check my geo count. In order to fully upgrade my nail, I need 7,050 geo. So seeing as that I'm a little short, I need to quickly save Lem from the Rain so that I can sell an artifact to him before progressing on to the Nailsmith. With a full wallet, I upgrade my nail 4 times, increasing its damage from 5 per hit to 21. Kinda sucks that I'm not going to get to use it for long. After realizing that he is peaked, the Nailsmith asks me to kill him with his greatest creation. I do not hesitate, and do not even linger long enough to see his body hit the floor. My speedrun must go on, and now I have unlocked the final exclusive achievement, Purity. The absolute final thing that I need to do in this run is defeat the Hollow Knight. So it is straight to the Black Egg for me. With the huge amount of damage that my nail now puts out, I dominate the Hollow Knight and take its place, consuming the corruption. This one action earns me 3 achievements: the Hollow Knight for seeing this ending, and Speedrun 1 and 2 for finishing the game in less than 10 and 5 hours respectively. This is actually where my first attempt at this run failed, as I completed the run in 5 hours and 4 minutes. But before I get too proud of my accomplishments, here comes the hard part. I start a new file, making sure that I am in Steel Soul mode. For the uninitiated, Steel Soul is Hollow Knight's 1 life mode. A single death will kick me to the main menu and tell me to start again. This is actually the reason that this video took so long to come out. I had not ever completed a Steel Soul playthrough before, and a single death meant that my run was over. I also only had enough time for 1 attempt a week, which I actually streamed live on my Twitch, so you should follow me there if you want to see this sort of pain live. The link is in the description. To start with, my path really doesn't differ from the first run. One minor change is that after breaking the huge door in King's Pass, I backtrack to collect the Fury of the Fallen charm. This is because breaking the door sets my spawn point outside, so after collecting the charm, I can save and quit to save myself a small walk back. The charm is also very interesting. It increases my nail damage by a massive 75%. The only catch is that you need to be at 1 HP to make use of it. The speedrun guide specifically mentions entering this range at one point to complete a battle faster. I will not be doing that for obvious reasons. Anyway, I kill the False Knight again and recollect the Vengeful Spirit spell. In the Ancestral Mound, I make sure to kill everything that I come across. One of the more tedious achievements in Hollow Knight is the True Hunter achievement, which requires that you complete the Hunter's Journal, which I will acquire later, by killing multiple of every enemy in the game. You can begin working on this achievement even before acquiring the actual journal, so I will be killing pretty much every enemy that I come across for the rest of the playthrough. I once again head to Greenpath in search of Hornet and the Mothwing Cloak. This time I nail the fireball skip on my second try before seeing Zote being nibbled on by the Vengefly King. Now, last time I left Zote to die. This time, however, my conscience kicked in, so I kill his assailant before declaring that my work is done and leaving him face down on the ground. Honestly, nothing here changes from the first run, so I'm going to gloss over a bunch of it. I beat Hornet for a second time and acquired the Mothwing Cloak, and I rushed straight to the Mantis Claw. I did cut it a little bit close when attempting to use the Mantis Youth to jump back up to the Claw, but otherwise nothing interesting really happened. Making sure to save grubs and murder dudes, I head into the Soul Sanctum. But before I go too far in, I break a hole in this wall to gain access to the toll bench nearby. This is a bit of a time loss, but it does have a purpose. Like I said before, dying means that this run is over, but there is a way to somewhat avoid this. If I am about to die, I can simply save and quit. This will immediately warp me back to the most recent bench with full HP. This is a last resort, as it obviously isn't the fastest strategy in the world, but hey, it is better than having to start again. Though I do have to be aware of when sitting at a bench will interfere with a planned bench warp later, so there are some times where it may not necessarily be the best strategy. Anyway, with my checkpoint close by, I push through the Soul Sanctum, collecting the Spell Twister charm and defeating the Soul Master for the Desolate Dive spell. For pretty much every boss fight going forward, I will be taking it slow. I tend to overextend when attempting to deal damage and take meaty hits in return. Caution has never been my strong suit, but I will try my absolute best. After defeating the Soul Master, I fake dive again to save the grub and leave the Sanctum, pausing to sit at the toll bench so that I can equip the Spell Twister and reset my spawn point, as the game actually sets it to the Soul Master's corpse upon defeat. On my way to the Storeroom Stag, I pause to collect a simple key for later, before heading to the Crystal Peaks, obtaining the Storeroom Key, Crystal Heart, Descending Dark, and the Dream Nail, alongside a bunch of grubs. From here, the route begins to diverge from the last run, so I'm going to start going into details again. After I wake up at the foot of the Seer, I rush outside and open the Resting Ground Stag Station, before heading into the crypts, freeing the grub, opening the chest, you know, the usual. But I also destroyed this wall to gain access to the Soul Eater charm, as in order to earn the Blessed achievement later, I need to collect every single charm. Here, instead of taking the elevator down to the City of Tears, I head across the Blue Lake, completely forgetting that I have the Crystal Dash and could have just flown across. I purchase a Shaman Stone and the Charm Notch from Salubra before heading outside, then I make a mistake. See, in my notes, I wrote that I should equip the Shaman Stone immediately. During my run, I debated if this made sense, before ultimately deciding that I probably knew what I was doing when I wrote it down. But I was a fool for thinking this. By sitting at this bench, I reset my spawn point, meaning that I would no longer be able to bench warp directly back to the Soul Sanctum, which I would do in about 60 seconds. With Sly saved and Elegant Key in hand, I complete the March of Shame back to the Sanctum Toll Bench, before obtaining the Shade Soul. I once again go through the Soul Sanctum, making sure to kill as many Soul Twisters as I can, so that hopefully I never have to come here again. As I get to the end of the Sanctum, I find the Soul Master's corpse glowing, just as the Broken Vessel had in the last run, so I Dream Nail it to challenge the Soul Tyrant. This boss has a lot of health for this point in the game, 1250 in fact. Now, considering that I do 5 damage per hit, this is a long fight. It takes me over 6 minutes to complete. With full HP, I enter his second phase, and it was not a good performance. I did not want to repeat the entire fight leading up to this point, so with 1 HP in a dream, I narrowly avoid death and defeat the Soul Tyrant, rightfully earning the Mortality achievement and 300 Essence. It is now time to put my simple key to use, allowing me to access the subterranean waterways. I quickly sit at the bench so that I can save like 20 seconds of running, and then collect a grub and my first Mask Shard. Collecting 4 of these gives me 1 extra HP, and there are achievements for reaching certain HP thresholds, so I will be collecting every single one. Shard in hand, I challenge the jovial Dung Defender Ogrim to combat. With Descending Dark, I can stagger him and force him out from underground, so this fight goes quickly. After sending the Dung Defender packing, he's actually the only boss in this game who survives our encounter, I collect the Defender's Crest and the Honor achievement, and then smash my way through a wall to enter the Ancient Basin and unlock the toll bench there. While heading towards the Broken Vessel fight, I collect another simple key from a corpse, before once again demolishing it and collecting myself the double jump. Now, to show that I've woken up, I defeat the Lostkin on the first try, earning another 400 essence. This unlocks the Attunement achievement for acquiring 600 essence. I quickly head towards the hidden station to unlock it once again, but here I deviate from the path laid out on the speedrun route. My next target is the Failed Champion, the dream version of the False Knight. This is a beefy boss, who I just could not beat in my earlier attempts. His armor has 360 health per phase, and he has 3 phases by the way, and it does not give you any soul when you hit him with your nail. So I would need to hit this guy 72 times with a nail to stagger him just once. Plus, he hits for 2 damage, meaning that I die in just 3 hits. Now, notice that I mentioned he doesn't give you soul when you hit him with your nail. Well, he does give you soul when you hit him with your dream nail. So I stag to the seer slightly earlier than intended. This is because the reward for obtaining 500 essence is the Dream Wielder charm. This nifty little thing has 2 benefits. It allows me to charge up the dream nail faster, reducing the charge time by about 37%. And it doubles the amount of soul I obtain when I actually hit a guy with the dream nail. So I gatecrash awake and charge valiantly into the dream fight. The start of this fight doesn't go well. I'm forgetting the patterns of when to charge in, when to punish. I take 2 hits, leaving me on just 1 HP. I charge up my dream nail, swing and miss. And then I die. Well, thanks for watching everybody. I will see you next time. I tried my absolute best, but I guess I'm just not good enough. Wait, what happened? This is Steel Soul. A death is meant to end the run. Well, actually I lied. Kinda. Death is bad in the Steel Soul run, but as it turns out, this death was just a dream, so it doesn't count. After waking up, I dream nail the maggots for soul before challenging the Failed Champion again. On my 5th attempt, things go differently. I narrowly manage to cause him to stagger, which allows me to put my master plan to action. There are 2 ways for the Failed Champion to recover from a stagger. Take a certain amount of damage, or take no hits for a few seconds. There is, however, a method for extending the stagger indefinitely. While staggered, hitting the armor does not deal damage to the maggot inside, but it still does count for the no-hit timer. This means that I can hit the armor, dream nail it for soul, hit the armor again, and then heal before repeating the process until I have full HP and soul. I then smack the maggot until he gets up and starts raging. During this attack, I can fire all 3 of my reserve fireballs, each of which hit twice, immediately reducing the amount of damage I need to deal in this phase from 360 to 120. After 2 more successful dream nails and 3 fireballs, the Failed Champion falls once again. Rinse and repeat one more time and the battle is won. 300 essence and 1 achievement later, I wake up and kill the remaining maggots. These guys are one-off spawns that are required for the Hunter's Journal, so I cannot just leave them be. I then head back to the Seer. This is so that I can acquire the Dreamgate skill now that I have 900 essence. This skill is indispensable for completing this run quickly, as it allows me to set my own fast travel point pretty much wherever I want, and teleport back to it for the low cost of 1 essence. This saves a lot of unnecessary backtracking, as I can simply place a Dreamgate at a crossroad, explore one path, before warping back and exploring the other. I now require the Lumafly lantern, so I head to Dirtmouth and talk to Sly, before realizing that I haven't collected enough money during my adventures so far. After a quick detour to sell some things to Lem, I return with a full wallet and acquire the lantern. Heading through King's Pass, I make sure to break the Lifeblood cocoon. I need to kill 10 of these life seeds throughout the run, and this is one of the cocoons that is least out of the way. I then head through a secret path at the start of King's Pass to climb up to the Howling Cliffs. This is where I acquired the Cyclone Slash ability and challenge Gorb to a fight. Gorb does not take my fireballs well, so the fight does not last very long. This fight has the dual benefit of awarding me with 100 essence and checks one of the required enemies off of my list for the Hunter's Journal. I head into the Howling Cliffs until I find Cornifer, who is sitting outside the room that houses the Joni's Blessing charm. Here is the first instance of Dreamgate's usefulness. I place a gate next to Cornifer and progress through the room. Once I have collected the charm, instead of walking out, I simply teleport. Next, I light the Nightmare Lantern, which I won't use for a little bit, before heading through to Greenpath. stopping briefly to save a grub and collect the Baldur's Shell charm. I set a dream gate next to the Moss Knights as I need to walk back here later before heading to the Lake of Un. This area has, in my opinion, one of the hardest skips in this entire run. See, the Lake of Un is not a friendly lake. The entire thing is fizzing acid, but there is a small gap along the surface of the lake that normally would require you to have the Isma's Tear to be able to swim through. There is a strat to completely avoid this though, meaning that I never have to come here again. By sliding down the wall, you can fire 3 fireballs to push yourself under the wall without touching the acid. You then have a very small window to initiate a dash, which you can double jump out of to get to the other side. If you press the dash too early, you will simply not dash as you are locked out of using it for a brief period of time after using your fireball. If you press the dash too late, on the other hand, you will either complete the dash but fall into the acid before your double jump kicks in, or simply already be bathing in acid. My strategy for this is to leave the Moss Knight on the pier alive and dream nail it for unlimited soul and healing whenever I fail, as I have never successfully gotten this in less than 5 attempts. After setting up for my first attempt, I fail and I get the timing of my fireballs wrong. With correct timing and infinite soul, you can actually stall in the air forever with repeated fireball casts. For my second attempt, after I kill the nearby Aluba for my journal, I fire my fireballs to stall at the correct height, but begin to try and move left too early, firing one fireball the wrong way and dooming me to fall. My third and fourth attempts go just as well. On my 5th try, however, the stars align and I successfully complete the skip. If you thought that the hard part was over, well, you're like 50% correct. In the next room, there is a lot of acid around, another acid skip to do, and no way to regain soul. This means that my 5 effective HP is all I have to get through this. Otherwise, I have to quit and perform the previous skip all over again. At this point, I'm getting nervous. I keep missing the easiest portion of the skip, clinging to the wall. See, there is a slight delay between certain actions in this game, like with the fireball into dash before. For dashing into a wall and crystal dashing, you have to wait until the dash completely ends and the knight grabs the wall. There is actually an audio cue for this. The same is true for jumping off the wall on the other side. After falling into the acid 4 times and only having 1 chance left of this run, I dash into the wall and get the C-dash timing right. I then launch myself across the pool and jump as soon as I am able, clearing this daunting gap. It is not smooth sailing from here though. There are still many acid pools around that I need to avoid, and I genuinely do not remember the layout of this room. So I cautiously traverse the room, safely landing at the bottom where Un comes out to greet me and give me the Shape of Un charm. I immediately quit warp to Dirtmouth to begin the Grim Troop quest, receiving the Grim Child charm, which I equip before heading to the Storm Stag to defeat the Grimkin. Rather than leaving this area though, I head left and use this elevator to gain access to the Forgotten Crossroads vessel fragment. With that in hand, I walk back to the dream gate that I placed by the Moss Knights previously. I then head further into Greenpath until I come to a crossroads. Setting a new dream gate, I head left towards Shio's house. At this point, my run is going very well, for me anyway, but I'm still feeling nervous since the Un incident. With the stress of wanting to complete the run looming, I show just how good a gamer I am, losing 3 HP in 5 seconds, accidentally cancelling a heal leaving me without enough soul for another, and forgetting that I can just save and quit and walk back to my dream gate with full HP. I then do this. Words cannot describe how lucky I am to have survived that. Previous encounters with spikes have taught me never to trust their hitboxes, but I am sure that if I was just a pixel higher or a pixel further to the left, this run was over right there. But luck was on my side, so I dream nailed the enemy to get myself to full HP before going deeper. After talking to Shio and learning the Great Slash, I immediately teleport out and continue on my way, getting the Thorns of Agony charm, saving 2 grubs, and finally obtaining the Hunter's Journal. How this journal works is that every time you kill an enemy for the first time, it gets recorded in this journal, and this little icon will display on the screen. The journal will then ask you to kill a certain number of these enemies to complete their entry, which will then show this icon. There are a total of 146 enemy types that need to be recorded and completed for the True Hunter achievement. Anyway, after obtaining the journal, I saved another grub and found my 3rd vessel fragment. These combined in order to give me a completed vessel, which allows me to store more soul at once. This also gives me the Soulful achievement. From there, it's a short run to unlock the Howling Wraith spell before I enter the Stone Sanctuary to challenge No Eyes. Now, I'm not going to mince words. This fight and I do not get along. I do not like it and it does not like me. Plain and simple. No Eyes teleports randomly, often avoiding your attack, and her own attacks are these wibbly wobbly little guys constantly flying across the screen. Not gonna lie, it took me 3 attempts to beat No Eyes, quitting every time I got down to 1 HP. My reward for this fight is my 3rd Mask Shard. Back at Dirtmouth, I take the aerial entrance to Crystal Peaks, saving a grub, killing the Mimic for my journal, and getting the last available flame for the Grimchild. After that, I head to the Deep Focus Charm Room. I am meant to place a Dream Gate here so that I can teleport out after collecting the charm, but I completely forgot. But that isn't the end of the world. This area just requires that I correctly time my C dashes, which I do with almost 100% accuracy, until I collect the charm. I then have to ride the conveyor belt of shame back out. After a short climb, I reach the Crystal Guardian. By utilizing Descending Dark, it is very hard to take much damage, and the fight does not last long. I head to the right and place another Dream Gate. This is because my next fight is the Enraged Crystal Guardian, a very similar fight but with more boss HP and it deals 2 damage per hit. This gate just means that if I do need to save and quit, I can warp directly back to the boss. Turns out this was an unnecessary precaution, as I succeed on my first attempt, giving me access to my 4th Mask Shard. This completes the mask, giving me 1 extra HP, and the Protected achievement. My next destination is Hallownest's Crown and the pale ore that resides there. As I enter the highest parts of the Crystal Peak, I set another Dream Gate. I have mentioned that the Dream Gate is invaluable for removing backtracking, but it has another incredibly important use. By setting a Dream Gate in an area that I need to get lots of kills in, you know, for the journal, I can completely clear out the area, save and quit, and Dream Gate back. In Hollow Knight, most enemies only respawn when you sit at a bench, but they also respawn if you exit the game, as you spawn back at a bench. This means that I can clear an area, exit, warp back, and clear it over and over until the journal is complete. So I clear the area again and save a grub before climbing even higher. At the top of my next room, I create yet another Dream Gate in order to farm this room once more. With this done, I have now completed the journal for every enemy found at the topmost portion of Crystal Peak. I never need to come here again. Once I collect the ore, that is. After walking back to Dirtmouth, I talk to Grim, who gives me parenting advice. I then head back through King's Pass again, killing more life seeds as well as another Grimkin before warping right back. My next target is the Zero fight in the Resting Grounds, but before I start that battle, I want to make sure that I have a full soul gauge to massively speed up the fight. So I run through the Forgotten Crossroads, killing everything I come across and saving the Grub Daddy Grub again. I stag to the Resting Grounds and challenge Zero, killing him in 3 fireballs. I exit the arena through a hole in the floor, immediately find another Grimkin, and enter into the City of Tears, where I complete an arena to collect yet another vessel fragment and unlock the King's Stag Station. This stag station is going to be my main hub for its proximity to areas that do not have an alternate means of fast traveling, and well, because it's a stag station. So I place a Dream Gate before heading out through a hole in the wall towards the kingdom's edge. I save a grub, successfully collect another flame, kill a bunch of enemies, and then read my route. Turns out I got a little bit ahead of myself, so I warp right back to the station before taking the correct path this time. I enter into the elevator shaft and begin to descend. But about halfway down, I find what I'm looking for. This tunnel of spikes is partway through the intended path to Isma's Grove, where I can acquire the ability to swim in acid. But rather than running all the way around to go through this tunnel, I perform a precise pogo and dash to barely thread the needle and avoid all the spikes, allowing me to quickly get to my destination. On the other side of the tunnel, I need to perform another acid skip to get through the warp you would normally take when you exit Isma's Grove. I dash into the underside of this wall and begin a C-dash. Despite how it looks, this does work. I then glide across the surface of the pool, smash into the opposite wall, and then jump to safety. Through the door, I need to perform another, much easier acid skip. This requires me to line my eye up with this little outcropping of pebbles before C-dashing across, cancelling it early and double jumping out. Then all I need to do is collect Isma's tears, and now I never have to worry about acid ever again. Before I leave, I swim under Isma to save yet another grub, kill the Blugsack outside, which I had left alive as a renewable source of soul for my acid skips, and farm the nearby Whurmps until my journal no longer requires them. I now correctly head to the kingdom's edge. My goal here is to obtain the King's Brand, which allows me to access the Abyss. Before I get to that though, I do make a minor mistake. As I am about to enter the area with Hornet, I place a Dream Gate. This is because, in previous runs, I have had to leave the Hornet fight and run all the way back, which, as you can tell, is a massive time loss. What I should have done though, is head to the bench that is literally like 10 seconds to the left and sit there. This is because, after you collect the King's Brand, the game sets your spawn, meaning that quit warping is no longer an option, but you still would be able to Dream Gate back to the station. So you know, it's just a small optimization if I were ever to try this again. Or I could just get better at the Hornet fight and complete it first try. Anyway, my second attempt at Hornet was all I needed to get through and acquire the King's Brand, earning the Proof of Resolve achievement. After running all the way back to King's Station, I fixed my mistake by sitting down another Dream Gate before heading through the Hidden Station and into the Abyss. I have a few goals down here. Firstly, I scream into the void to acquire the Abyss Streak upgrade. I now have all available spell upgrades. Secondly, heading deeper into the Abyss, I begin to climb up an abandoned lighthouse. I need to turn it on in order to reach my final destination down here. During the climb, I do make sure to kill 25 siblings for the Hunter's Journal, as they are only found down in the Abyss and eventually will become non-hostile. After turning on the lighthouse, I jump into a fountain to upgrade my Mothwing Cloak. The Shade Cloak is an incredible item. It allows me to gain access to areas that are locked off behind these black pillars, and it also allows me to dash through enemies and attacks without taking damage. Before leaving, I inspect this inscription on the wall to add the Void Tendril entry to my journal. This is one of 4 entries that can only be obtained by inspecting certain objects around the map, so I had to make sure that I did not forget it. I then Dreamgate back to the King's Station in order to explore deeper into the city. As I am moving through, I find this open door. Inside this house, through a small gap in the wall, is the gorgeous Husk, another one-off enemy required for the Hunter's Journal, so I quickly kill it and collect the 420 geo left behind. It is now time to begin progressing the main story. I climb up the spire once more and challenge the Watcher Knights. With my current gear, I barely even take any damage and the Watcher Knights go down. So I loot the seal and the chest before absorbing Lurien, my first Dreamer. I Dreamgate out and stag to Dirtmouth to fight Grim to spawn the next lot of Grimkin, before heading through the Forgotten Crossroads and defeating the Brooding Morlek, which is guarding a Mask Shard. Now I'm going to head into the Fungal Wastes in an attempt to completely finish this portion of the map. I save a grub, obtain the Godhome journal entry, meet Legeater and acquire his charms, then defeat Elder Who before going into the Fungal Core to complete every possible journal entry, kill a Grimkin, and collect another Mask Shard. The next area to draw my murderous gaze is the Mantis village. I unlock the depths of the village, but before going down, I do what must be done and slaughter the nearby mantises. I then challenge the Mantis Lords to a fight. This is one of my favorite early game fights. The boss's attacks intertwine so well and the fight is so fluid, but at this point I am just far too powerful. I have finally earned respect, which I immediately put to use to obtain the Mark of Pride charm. I then use my newfound power over the mantises to kill those that are prostrating themselves before me, completing my journal entries with much less effort. My final task in this area is to collect the Dashmaster charm, complete the final fungal journal entries, and navigate this narrow gauntlet of spikes and death to save Bretta, a young lady who begins to swoon at how daring and, dare I say, attractive I am. Saving Bretta is super important for a couple of achievements down the road. Back to Legeater, I enter Fog Canyon using Isma's Tear. I then enter this small room full of exploding bubbles and jellyfish, which I carefully navigate to obtain a charm notch. I also then forget that I have Isma's Tear despite the fact I literally just used it, and jump into the acid. This would warp me right back to the entrance, but yeah, I'm immune to the acid now. Oh well. Onwards to the Teacher's Archive, I team up with Quirrell to beat Umu before making sure to leave the arena through the left exit. This is vital, as the charged Illumify journal entry can only be obtained by inspecting this glowing container, which I would hate to forget. With Monomon consumed, I make my way into the Queen's Garden. Eventually, I place a Dreamgate inside. I continue on to collect the Love Key, protected by several Mantis traders, who I kill for my journal. I then break through the wall to find the corpses of several mossy vagabonds. By inspecting these corpses, I complete another journal entry, though this is not the 4th entry that I mentioned earlier as being only obtainable via inspection, as you can actually kill these guys before the infection to unlock the entry. Anyway, I set off the pitfall trap into the deep nest, but do not go down it. Instead, I break the wall to gain access to the fungal wastes, and save a grub and collect the Spore Shroom charm. This charm is more important than the others for reasons I will go into later, but it is also the halfway mark for charms obtained, so I unlocked the Enchanted achievement. After that, it was down the hall to save the Deep Nest Mimic grub. I also killed all the mimics, as this will leave me with one mimic left to kill for my journal. I dreamgate back to the Queen's Garden and unlock and sit at the tall bench inside, before handily clearing out the nearby arena and saving another 2 well-hidden grubs, and challenging Mamu to a fight. Mamu is a boss that contorts itself into a ball before hurling itself at you. As such, it's pretty easy to beat, as it constantly comes into stabbing range. After winning the fight, I head right to unlock the hidden entrance to the Queen's Stag Station. After some more incredible displays of my platforming prowess, I set a dreamgate at a crossroads and head up, rescuing this grub from its confinements at the highest point in the area. I then dreamgate back and head into the Traitor Lord fight, which is pretty tough. It moves fast and it hits for 2 damage, a lethal combination. I play pretty risky, getting down to 2 HP, think about quitting and then change my mind. But then I make another mistake, and staring down an oncoming attack that will 100% murder me, I leave. My second attempt goes much more smoothly, as I aggressively use Descending Dark and the Shade Cloak to gain enough invincibility to go through every attack, and I complete the fight while only taking 1 hit. This gives me the Execution achievement and access to the White Lady, who confers upon me the White Fragment, one of 2 fragments of the King Soul, which is required for unlocking several endings, and consequently, achievements. I walk back to the tall bench and make sure to equip the Grimchild charm, before heading into the Deep Nest. Because I have unlocked the Lumafly Lantern, this area is much easier to navigate. So I head down until I reach a very large room, and I place a Dreamgate before heading left to the distant village. Here I collect the flame from Brum before entering into the Beast's Den and sitting on the trap bench. After my meeting with the locals, I free myself from my bonds and make my way through the area, killing everything in sight, until I come across Hera, the final dreamer. After heading through the Beast's Den once more to get some kills, I sit at the bench and equip the Spore Shroom charm before leaving to unlock the distant village Stag Station. This is the final Stag Station to unlock, meaning that I can technically unlock the Hope achievement whenever I want, but this will wait until later when it's more optimal. I stag to the Queen's Station, collect the Mask Shard within, and then head through the Fungal Wastes. Here I find Mr. Mushroom for the first time. Mr. Mushroom is the Herald of a Coming Age, and is required for a hidden ending in Hollow Knight. He spawns in 7 places around the map that must be visited in sequence after all 3 dreamers have been killed. This is the only reason that the Spore Shroom charm is more important than any other charm. Without it, Mr. Mushroom speaks only in gibberish and refuses to move forward to his next destination. After Mr. Mushroom departs, I dreamgate back to Deep Nest to take the right path. Here I find another grub and an area hidden behind a wall, the Weaver's Den. Inside this area is the Weaver Song charm and literally nothing else of note. So I continue into the failed tramway, set a new Dreamgate, and continue through killing all the enemies, another lot of life seeds, and obtaining the tram pass, which I can use to unlock and access the 2 trams found around the map. After quit warping and dreamgating several times to complete the journal entries in this area, I leave to the right and descend back through Deep Nest, finding Zote in yet another sticky situation. But this time before saving him, I need to complete the single worst arena in this game. The sounds in this area really get to me. But after defeating the Nightmare Fuel, I free Zote once again before taking a well-deserved rest in the hot spring, where I also sit at the bench. I quickly put Nosk down and acquire another Pale Ore before heading into unexplored territory. To the right of the hot springs is a labyrinth of Garpede tunnels, which houses the final item I need to inspect for my journal, this Garpede corpse, as well as a Sharp Shadow charm, a fun little pogo challenge to obtain another vessel fragment, and a tram. By using my tram pass, I can travel directly to the Ancient Basin. After arriving at the Ancient Basin, I jump into this hole to finish my Lesser Morlick journal entry, save a grub and collect yet another Pale Ore. I then jump straight back into the tram and continue on to the Kingdom's Edge. After a short climb, I find Mr. Mushroom chilling in a small recess in the cliff wall. After a brief chat, he once again moves on, as do I, back to the failed tramway. Here I head towards the Galian fight, but before challenging his ghost, I run right past to find Mr. Mushroom yet again, as well as more life seeds. Galian is not a hard fight with the extra HP from the life seeds. I simply tank all of his attacks and wail on him with my Abyss Shriek, taking him down and allowing me to walk back to the tram at the Kingdom's Edge. At this point, I now have over 1800 essence. This means that I've fulfilled the criteria for the Awakening achievement. I just need to go and collect it. I then smash through a wall to unlock the isolated Hive, a kingdom that was entirely sealed off from Hallownest, but it is not safe from me. I run through, destroying the inhabitants, pausing only briefly to obtain the essence from a whispering root, and to kill another Grimkin. Deeper inside, I goad this big bee to destroy a wall that is preventing me from accessing another mask shard, before dashing into a hole in the roof to rescue another grub. I then rush back to the area with the mask shard and place a dream gate, because I forgot to do it earlier, before challenging the Hive Knight to a duel. I do beat the Hive Knight on my first try, despite my best efforts, barely surviving on 1 HP. If my invincibility had ended a second earlier, or if I hadn't noticed this projectile, it could have been a different story. I super cautiously proceed underneath the arena to collect the Hive Blood Charm, before warping to the tram and dreamgating back into the Hive a few times in order to complete my journal. I now have another portion of the map I never need to enter again. Back in Kingdom's Edge, I go out of my way to save 2 more grubs before challenging and defeating Markoth, unlocking the dash slash and collecting the quick slash charm, before climbing further into the Kingdom's Edge and putting the love key I acquired so long ago to use. Inside the Tower of Love, I challenged the Collector to a fight. This being is responsible for all of the grubs that were trapped around the map. This fight is an interesting one. Hitting the Collector does not give me soul, meaning that I cannot just spam my spells to victory. Instead, as the fight progresses, the Collector drops more and more containers of regular enemies to distract me. These are perfect fodder for farming soul though, so ultimately the Collector aids me in defeating it, earning the Obsession achievement. After defeating the Collector, I rescue the 3 grubs contained within the Tower of Love, before exiting towards the King's Station, where I once again set my dream gate and bench. I have not 100% completed the Kingdom's Edge yet, but I am pretty damn close. I once again head into the City of Tears, this time dropping down to enter this door. Inside is a large husk guarding a grub. I swiftly destroy the guard and free the grub, finally earning the Metamorphosis achievement for saving all 46 grubs. I no longer have to think about the grubs at all. This also marks the halfway point, achievement-wise, as this is achievement 32 of 63. At this rate, it's only going to take me 15 hours to finish. As I leave the room, I make sure to kill the last Great Husk Sentry for my journal, before selling everything I own to Lem, and strengthening my nail at the nailsmith. I cannot max out my nail here, as I've only collected 4 of the required 6 Pale Ore, but this still increases my nail damage by 240%, bringing it up to 17 damage per swing. After returning to the King's Station, I finally travel to the Stag Nest, unlocked almost an hour ago at this point. Inside, I find a vessel fragment and a freshly hatched stag egg, giving me the Hope achievement. I exit the nest through the large door at the top and make my way into Mato's house. But I'm not here to talk to Mato this time. No, I am here to harass Mr. Mushroom once more. This is step 4 of 7 in Mr. Mushroom's journey. I now have some goodwill to cash in on, so I make my way to the Elder Grub to see the fruits of my hard work. All 46 grubs are home, safe and sound, where nothing bad can ever happen to them again. Anyway, in appreciation for my efforts, the Elder Grub spends an entire 2 minutes throwing money and various goods in my general direction. I collect a whopping 6,750 Geo, a Pale Ore, a Mask Shard, and 2 Charms before heading to Dirtmouth to put my overflowing wallet to use. My first destination is the map shop. I purchase the Wayward Compass Charm and every map that Cornifer, who can be seen napping in the background, has ever drawn. This gives me the Cartographer achievement. I then enter Bretta's home and take the Mask Shard housed within, deliberately ignoring the doll bearing my likeness. Finally, I enter Sly's shop, where he gives me the Nail Master's Glory Charm, before letting me purchase his entire inventory, gaining a bunch of charms, 3 more Mask Shards, and 2 more Vessel Fragments. After taking everything that isn't nailed down, I head to the Resting Grounds to talk to the Seer. She gives me a few more rewards for reaching the 1800 Essence milestone, including my 14th Mask Shard, before upgrading my Dream Nail to the Awoken Dream Nail. This gives me the Awakening achievement, as well as giving me access to several endgame areas, such as the White Palace and the Radiance fight. But I get ahead of myself. Before I can even think about tackling the Radiance, I collect the Dream Shield Charm, and head back into the crypt in order to find the Grey Mourner. She tasks me with a quest to take a frail little flower all the way across the dang map and place it at the grave of her beloved. Any damage taken or using a fast travel will destroy the flower, forcing me to return and grab another. Here, I make one of the rare mistakes in this run. When offered the flower, I say no. I'm not gonna lie, I forgot that this game defaults this answer to no and was just mashing heartily to skip the dialogue. With 0 flowers in my possession, I run all the way across the map, killing everything that could do me harm, although I do briefly stop and talk to Quirrell to unlock the Witness achievement and buy out Salubra. Eventually, I arrive at the final room. I then immediately jump into spikes and get really confused. Usually there's a little notification saying flower destroyed upon taking damage, but for obvious reasons, that didn't appear. This is where I realize I am in fact an idiot and need to reset the entire thing. It's fine though, as it is only a 6-minute mistake in, at this point, an 8-hour run. Back at the Morna, I make a point to actually take the flower this time, but as I'm heading through the Forgotten Crossroads, I dodge one enemy only to jump into the exploding corpse of another. Oh well, I can always restart. But before I do, I continue into the next room to acquire the mask shard contained within. Round 3 is the shortest attempt so far. I forgot the layout of the map, attempted a crystal dash, and realized just too late that I was barreling straight into an enemy. I almost salvaged it, but it just wasn't meant to be. For round 4, I'm gonna skip the run because I arrive back at the final room, which is a great indication that nothing interesting really happened. I easily make the first jump of the room, which is actually the only annoying jump in the entire journey, and successfully leave an offering at the grave of this mysterious Mantis. After we share a moment, I warp directly back to the Grey Morna to deliver the news of my success, whereupon she evaporates into nothingness and leaves behind the final mask shard. I have now unlocked both the Solace and Masked achievement, for helping the Grey Morna and acquiring all mask shards respectively. Back in King's Station, I change up my charm build to participate in the Colosseums once more. The first Colosseum goes very smoothly. I am much stronger in this run than I was in the previous one, so nothing of note happens until after I kill the Gruzmother. Here, a surprise final boss is thrown at me, Zote the Mighty. This boss is a great time to prove just how much my skills have grown. I hit him once, launching him into the air. Now, without letting Zote touch the ground, I prove my own might, earning the Rivalry achievement. This is one of the achievements that is not earnable if Zote dies, hence the 2 runs. The Trial of the Conqueror literally has nothing new, and will not be discussed here, though I do get the final Pale Ore inside. Now, for the first time, I enter the Trial of the Fool, the longest, hardest, and strongest trial they have to offer. This trial introduces a couple new enemies, like the Vault Twister, and culminates in a battle against the God Tamer. This fight squares me off against 2 enemies, the God Tamer and the beast she has tamed. There is no reason for me to attack the God Tamer herself, as if she dies, the beast will continue to attack, but if the beast dies, the God Tamer simply gives up. So after a brief fight, the beast goes down and the Tamer surrenders, earning me the full achievement. Now, before I leave the Colosseum, I must wrap up loose ends. Unfortunately, the Colosseum just does not throw enough enemies at you to complete the journal in one run. As such, I need to re-challenge the trials until I've completed every Colosseum exclusive entry. This takes over 10 minutes of challenging the trials, killing, exiting, and starting again. My final task before leaving the Colosseum area is to break a hidden wall in the rightmost portion of the arena and fighting the Pale Lurker. This fight nets me a simple key and another completed entry in my journal. This is where the speedrun route notes stop, so everything from here is a sort of best guess for the most optimal routing. My next destination is the White Palace, but before that I quickly head to the Nailsmith to upgrade my weapon one last time. This time, when he asks me to kill him, I simply say no, leaving him to think about life. Now at the hidden station, I head out to dreamnail a corpse of a king's mold. This transports me to the White Palace, a place of particularly difficult platforming sections and a frankly bizarre amount of whirling saw blades. But I'm no palace decorator. It is also worth pointing out that unlike other dreams, a death in the White Palace will kill a Steel Soul run, so I need to be extra careful. My goal is to make my way through the palace to reach the top, but my path is obstructed by locked doors that need to be opened by hitting 3 switches around the map, which each turn on a lantern. I actually really like navigating this area, as there are quite a few optimizations and shortcuts that can be done. For example, after killing the second King's Mold, instead of climbing up the various platforms, you can simply wall jump up and reach the switch. I take the newly unlocked elevator to the second room, where I now need to find 2 switches to reach the final floor. Heading towards the left switch first, I dodge a whirling saw before throwing myself off a ledge and sea-dashing underneath my intended obstacles. I then slowly weave through more and more saws until I reach this area. The game intends that you go up here and platform through more and more saws. Instead, by simply falling down, I am able to safely avoid everything the game has in store for me. I quickly heal to full by dream nailing the retainers lying around before turning on switch number 2. In the right area, I demonstrate more of my technical mastery by deftly avoiding damage before the area with the largest skip in the White Palace. By tucking myself right up close to the saw, but obviously not touching it, I can dash through the small gap between the saw and the wall, skipping this huge portion of the map. I then carefully C-dash underneath my intended path to get to the next room. Here is where I take advantage of one of the few intended shortcuts in the White Palace. By slamming into the floor, I break through and fall right on top of my goal, skipping an entire section of puzzles. With the final switch flipped, I take another elevator up and find a nice bench to sit at. This final area is quite long, but it does have many alternate paths. First, I dash to avoid a saw before jumping up and scooching under another wall to skip a few saws and spikes. I then land on this area with a lamppost. By jumping and pogoing off the lamp, I am able to gain just enough height to land on an upper platform, which allows me to skip another fairly big portion of the path. I then begin to flail for a bit as I struggle to sync myself up with the timing of some spikes, just in case you were thinking that this gameplay looked a little too clean. The next area is home to another intended shortcut. By smashing through the wall here, I am able to skip another frankly quite annoying puzzle. I then flick another switch to gain access to another portion of the map, and C-dash directly into spikes. After reorienting myself, I struggle to complete a rather tight jump that also skips a lot of hazards, taking me almost 2 minutes to make it up to the top. I then show my respects to the Pale King, knocking him off his throne and acquiring the second white fragment, which fuses with the previous one to give me the King Soul charm. Waking up outside, I check my geo count and realize that I am staggeringly poor. As my next task requires that I have at least 3000 geo, I head into the City of Tears and track down Lem to engage in some bartering. With full coffers, I head back to the hidden station and continue into the ancient basin, where I find a fountain that asks me to throw all of my money inside. It actually only accepts a maximum of 3000 geo though, so with all that inside, I am awarded the final vessel fragment, giving me the World Soul achievement. I then head to the toll bench unlocked previously. Here I completely rework my current charm build, equipping Fragile Heart, Joni's Blessing, and Lifeblood Heart. This converts my 9 masks into 18 Lifeblood masks. I also equip the King Soul as I need it in a second. I drop down into the abyss and find this sealed door. It requires that I have 15 Lifeblood masks in order to open, which is why my charms are set up the way they are. As the door finally opens, I realized I skipped a step, so I warp back to the bench before equipping the Spore Shroom charm and heading back to where I acquired the Monarch Wings. Here I find Mr. Mushroom chilling once again. After a short conversation, I head back to the door, still open from my previous visit, and head inside. Here I acquire an arcane egg, which strictly speaking I don't think I need anymore, as I think Geo is no longer required at this point. More importantly, I obtain the Lifeblood Core charm, only one charm left to go. Continuing down to the bottom of the abyss, the King Soul charm allows me to access the birthplace, where I am able to dreamnail a broken egg to experience a memory. By climbing all the way back up to the top of the abyss, I see the vessel that would eventually be known as the Hollow Knight being escorted from the abyss by the Pale King. As they leave, I fall back down and my King Soul is transformed into the Void Heart, earning my 42nd achievement, Void, and marking my journey as being 67% complete. I dreamgate back to the King Station, where I notice an odd visual glitch in my inventory. When you are overcharmed, you can see how many notches you exceed your limit highlighted in purple, but when my King Soul was converted to the Void Heart, its charm cost went from 5 to 0, meaning that I was no longer overcharmed. In order to check that I hadn't accidentally locked myself into the overcharmed state, which means you take double damage by the way, I run outside and take a hit, verifying that the overcharm display was only visual. Now I equip the charms that will stay with me for the rest of the game. I head deep into the Royal Waterways to find the final boss that has been eluding me, the Fluke Marm. Calling this thing a boss might make you overestimate its strength though. I simply sit underneath it and spam Abyss Shrieks until it bursts, allowing me to collect the final charm in the game, Fluke Nest. I then head through the waterways and revisit the Dung Defender, asleep under his arena. By dream nailing him, I am able to challenge his White Defender form, a significantly harder fight. In this form, he has new attacks, can no longer be knocked out from underground with Descending Dark, and just generally moves faster and has more HP. After defeating him, the shining forms of his former allies dissipate, leaving Ogrim all alone. And giving me the memory achievement. This fight also pushes me past the 2400 essence threshold required for the Ascension achievement, but I will not be unlocking that for a while yet. That is because my next task is to complete the 5 Pantheons hidden away within Godhome. Though I do make a slight detour for a well-deserved smooch and the Blessed achievement. So heading through the waterways towards the junk pit, I find some Flukemongers, the final enemy that I need to record in my journal for the Keen Hunter achievement. This means that I have now seen all 146 enemies that Hollow Knight cares about for the achievement, though I have not yet completed the journal in its entirety. In the junk pit, I unlock the Godseeker's cocoon to gain access to Godhome, the place where my previous furthest run came to die. As the Godseeker is freed, I immediately enter her dream, leaving the item she dropped on the ground. At the time, I didn't know if I needed this item, but I decided to quickly exit and pick it up, which was a fantastic decision honestly, as the God Tuner is worth 1% completion, and thus would have prevented me from earning the Pure Completion achievement. Anyway, 9.5 hours in, I begin to tackle the Pantheons. I'm not going to go into too much detail regarding the first 4 Pantheons, as I am simply completing a small boss rush in each, with one new boss appearing as the final fight. But each of these bosses reappear in Pantheon 5, so yeah, I'll show you there. I complete all 4 Pantheons, earning 1 achievement for each: Brotherhood, Inspiration, Focus, and Soul and Shade, which also gives me a nice cutscene to watch. Interestingly enough, Pantheon 4 is, up to this point, the furthest I've ever gotten in a run. In Attempt 5, which my footage was corrupted for, I was about 15 hours in, it was 1 AM and the Pure Vessel was handing me my ass, so I decided to go to bed. After completing Pantheon 4, I am now able to unlock Pantheon 5, the Pantheon of Hallownest. Now, I want to use my words to paint a picture in your brain. I am just reaching the 11-hour mark of actually playing, as the timer shows the in-game time with loads removed. It has been a long day, and nothing that I have done before now matters if I cannot beat this Pantheon. If you recall right at the start of this video, I mentioned that there were some achievements I had never earned before, referring to the Steel Soul achievement. Well, there were actually more, namely Embrace the Void for conquering Pantheon 5. So what is Pantheon 5 exactly? Well, it is a brutal gauntlet that sees you face up against 42 bosses in a row with a sparse few benches. It also culminates with the 3 hardest bosses in the game: Nightmare King Grim, the Pure Vessel, and the Absolute Radiance. Each journey to Absrad takes approximately 45 minutes, and if you die anywhere along this journey, well, good luck starting again, nerd. Do you know how demoralizing it is to get to this point, again 11 hours in, and realize that nothing I've done today matters if I cannot close the deal right here? Now, because you've already seen pretty much every boss already, I'm going to show you the ones that are different. First up, in room 11, are Oro and Mato. These guys form a deadly duo where one will charge up and attack while the other guards him, and watch out if you happen to land in the middle of the two of them. Unfortunately for them though, there is a bench immediately after this fight, so I simply tank every hit as I am a bulky boy, and slash my way through their defenses. In room 17, we see the Mantis Lords once again, but if you think it is simple as that, the game will quickly show you the error of your ways and send you right back to square one. After the first Mantis is defeated, all 3 stand up and cry before entering the fight. This is the Mantis Lords plus 50%. It is fast, it is fluid, and it is genuinely very fun. Next is room 23, Shio. He is a fun guy who fights with a paintbrush and bursts into globs of paint like confetti when stunned. 10 out of 10 design and not particularly hard. Heat arc a lot and you are good. On to 34 with Winged Nosk, taking the form of Hornet this time. Winged Nosk is Nosk, but with wings. It flies around the map similar to a Vengefly King and occasionally summons infected balloons. This fight genuinely feels like a whole lot of nothing. I take damage but can heal with pretty much no fear of being punished. It might be slow, but we just keep exchanging blows until I emerge victorious. The third Pantheon boss, Sly, resides on floor 35, wielding a sword bigger than he is, thus cementing his status as a video game badass. He really only has one combo that I know how to punish, the 3-part one that ends with him jumping into the air and spinning. I slowly chip away at his health, never overextending. In the third Pantheon you can simply tank all of his attacks and kill him quickly, but in Pantheon 5 he is followed by the second Hornet fight, so playing too aggressively is a surefire way to get bodied by Hornet. When he enters his second phase, I make sure to dash in the opposite direction to his approach and try to get a hit or two in before he launches his next attack. With enough soul, I try to preempt his attacks with a D-Dark to use my invincibility to avoid his attack and deal massive damage at the same time. Now, in room 43, we step into the last hot spring before Nightmare King Grim, but I do have something to tell you about first. Before, when I said that the Pantheon 5 puts you up against 42 bosses, I sorta lied. See, room 47 houses the fight with the Grey Prince Zote. However, if Zote is dead or if the Grey Prince Zote hasn't been defeated in the base game, this fight is skipped. That is why I specifically did the Pantheons first. Instead, we fight Margoth and then immediately go into the Failed Champion fight. I mentioned this fight specifically, as the Failed Champion is something of an unofficial rest stop himself. As I mentioned earlier, the Failed Champion can be stunned indefinitely and Dream-Nailed for healing. This is still true in Pantheon 5. In addition, when he falls for the third and final time, he will not ever get back up. He will simply wait for death. This means that it is a certainty that I will enter the Nightmare King Grim fight with full HP. 3 fights left to go. I challenge Nightmare King Grim. Casually, this fight was the hardest for me to take down. He always just felt so unfair to deal with. Now, however, I am a true gamer and I know how to react to all of his moves. NKG always opens with the same move, his slash into a jump and fireball explosion. The only thing that changes is the direction he starts from. He then launches into his dive dash attack. Previously, I would always attempt to punish this attack with at least 1 hit, but I would often fall into the fire and take 2 damage. Oh right, I should mention that NKG, Pure Vessel, and Absrad all deal 2 damage with their attacks, just to make things more interesting. Anyway, I just stall in the air to completely avoid that attack. His third attack is his Fire Bats attack. This is a super easy way to guarantee that you avoid the attack, which I forgot to use. But if you let the first bat go above you, you can then jump and dash to avoid the third bat and get a hit or 2 in before he begins his next attack. For his fourth attack, he floats in the middle of the arena and spawns 4 flame pillars underneath you after a small interval. This is the best attack to get a few hits in, but it is important to make sure that you don't hit him and get launched into the pillar with knockback. He enters his pufferfish form. This attack happens exactly 3 times during the fight, when he reaches 75, 50, and 25% HP. I use this attack to launch my entire soul reserve at him in the form of fireballs, while simultaneously dodging his own fireballs. In his final pufferfish attack, I make a rather bad decision and jump headfirst into a fireball. 2 more hits and I have to restart from floor 1. In a panic, I manage to avoid the rest of the fireballs, but we are both on our last legs. With my groove reacquired, I dodge the rest of his attacks until I eventually triumph. 2 fights left to go. Fortunately for me, there is a rest area just before the Pure Vessel, so I sit down and heal and breathe for a second. I have never gotten this far in Pantheon 5 before. Casually, I got as far as NKG, lost like 10 times and then gave up. So let's take stock. The next 2 fights are against Pure Vessel and Absolute Radiance. At this point, I've spent the last week practicing these 2 fights in preparation for this. I would estimate my success rate is 60% for Pure Vessel and maybe 10% for Absrad, and I've got to say, those odds do not inspire confidence. But there is nothing left for me to do but go forward. The one nice thing is that, no matter what condition I am in, as long as I beat the Pure Vessel, I will enter the Absrad fight with full HP. It might not surprise you to know that this fight is just the Hollow Knight, but harder. His attacks come quicker, hit harder, and have less or no safe zones to speak of. My strategy is down, D-Dark immediately after I've dashed into him and attacked. This is because he will usually retaliate to my strikes with attacks of his own. Eventually, he begins to focus in a manner that is similar to my healing, but the Pure Vessel's focus is not so benign. A large circle will form around him and eventually detonate. The way to avoid this attack is to immediately get out of the area by dashing away or using D-Dark to iframe your way through the attack. This attack indicates that I am at least 33% for the Pure Vessel's health bar. The fight continues and goes really well, until suddenly I'm on much shakier ground. I take 2 attacks in quick succession, I can only survive 1 more hit. I continue swinging wildly until the Pure Vessel reveals a new attack, where void tendrils shoot out from under his cloak. I simply avoid this attack by jumping, but this is a good sign. Both the Pure Vessel and I are at about 33% HP. I punish 1 more tendril attack, dodge a few others before finally landing the final blow. Suddenly, the pure vessel looks up and we are engulfed in light. Absrad will not wait. I am immediately teleported to the final arena, the pinnacle of the Pantheon of Hallownest, and the pinnacle of the challenges that Hollow Knight has to offer. Slowly, the sun in the background begins to shift and morph, revealing that it is, in fact, Absrad. Our fight begins. It genuinely does not start well. I take my first hit within seconds of the fight beginning. My nerves are getting to me, but after slowing myself down a bit, I wait for an attack I know I can heal on. Back to full HP, I steal my resolve. Absolute Radiance has 6 phases. I am currently still in phase 1. In this phase, she simply floats above the arena, blasting me with her attacks. After dodging her sword burst, she enters phase 2. The Radiance's behavior is identical to that displayed in phase 1, but now, periodically, half of the arena floor will be blocked off by spikes. I simply focus on dodging her attacks and waiting for her to appear on the safe side of the arena so that I can get some chip damage in. I continue to dodge, focusing on survival rather than damage, until eventually she shifts into her 3rd phase. Fortunately for me, in this phase, Absrad stays motionless in the center of the arena. It is a simple matter of charging in, getting in a single hit, and avoiding the oncoming swords. Rinse and repeat until Absrad falls to the ground. But if you think this is over, think again. I said 6 phases, remember? A platform appears above me, which I must climb to the next arena. This is the hardest part of the fight, and the longest. With Absrad having approximately 67% more HP in this phase than her 2nd longest phase. Previously, Absrad had only a few places she could teleport to around the arena. Now she has almost a dozen different spawn locations. Oh, and I no longer have a floor. I hit Absrad with my Abyss Shriek, the best attack I have in this phase. She tends not to stay in place for long, so I have to be quick. After another beam burst, however, she takes a quick break. I take advantage of it to hit her with some more shrieks and generate more soul. I forgot to mention this earlier, but Abyss Shriek actually has the highest damage potential out of all of the spells in my arsenal, dealing a max of 120 damage with the Shaman Stone. Eventually, Absrad is sick of me and wants a change of scenery, transitioning into phase 5. I cannot deal any damage to Absrad in this phase. It is merely a traversal encounter, but don't think that that fact makes it a freebie. I begin to climb from platform to platform, painstakingly avoiding each and every laser beam fired down from the heavens. So, by staggering my jumps and my dashes, I am able to successfully avoid everything until I reach the final level and begin phase 6. The strategy I use is to pogo off Absrad as she does not deal any contact damage, and to lure the orbs off screen where they immediately despawn. Eventually, Absrad heads to the center of the arena and takes her final hit. As my mask is broken and cast away, the void within drops down to merge and become the void given focus. This entity then destroys Absrad's core and destroys her. Phew, I did it. I beat Pantheon 5, earning the Embrace the Void achievement, as well as the Steel Soul, Steel Heart, Completion, and Speed Completion achievements. To summarize how these achievements were earned, it was for completing a run in Steel Soul with 100% completion within 20 hours. At 110%, I now have 2 things left to do in order to reach the magical 112% completion number: defeat Nightmare King Grim for real, and witness the Seer's Ascension. But I also have a whole lot of miscellaneous busy work to complete to earn my remaining 9 achievements. I return to Godhome and immediately depart, dreamgating back to the Forgotten Crossroads Stag. My first target for cleanup is Dirtmouth. When I arrive, I head to Bretta's house. Since defeating Zote in the Colosseum, he has returned to Dirtmouth and corrupted poor young Bretta. Now her house is overflowing with Zote. I accidentally read some Zote fanfic before descending into the basement and dream nailing a Zote effigy. As I enter the unhealthy dreams of an obsessed teenager, I must do battle with Grey Prince Zote, the idealized manifestations of Bretta's imagination. Unfortunately for Bretta, even the terrifying, beautiful, and powerful version of Zote isn't particularly strong. I swiftly dismantled Zote and earned the Dark Romance achievement. Now it is NKG time, but as you saw in Pantheon, he is no match for me. I leave the arena with the Ritual achievement and a child that is all grown up. I'm going to rapid fire some of the cleanup from here. I stag to the resting ground to watch the seer ascend. Ascension. I dash through Fog Canyon to find Mr. Mushroom. Mushroom. I head out to Shio's house in Greenpath to find the nailsmith. Happy couple. I enter the ancestral mound to complete my final 2 journal entries. True hunter. And then I find Mr. Mushroom again. Mushroom. Again. Finally, I enter the Black Egg. It is time to wrap this ordeal up and earn my final 4 achievements. I free the Hollow Knight from his bonds and use my overwhelming skill to knock him down. Eventually, Hornet pierces his forehead with her nail and ties him up, expecting me to do something? While I'm trying to figure out what Hornet means when she says, "Get there!" the Hollow Knight shakes her off, knocking her unconscious. I continue the fight as if nothing has happened, eventually defeating the Hollow Knight and absorbing the infection within myself. Now the infection is once again contained and the Black Egg is sealed, with Hornet forming a part of it. After the cutscene, I am treated to the surprise Mr. Mushroom ending. I now only have 1 achievement left to obtain, as this ending earned me the Sealed Siblings, Pure Completion, and Passing of the Age achievements. After watching the credits, I spawn back in the Black Egg. My final task is to defeat the Radiants. So, after some proper communication with Hornet, I figure out what I'm meant to do when she ties the Hollow Knight up, and enter his mind. Now, if you thought, well, you defeated Absrad, so this is going to be free, right? Prepare to be disappointed. I spent my entire week practicing Absrad, and the timing of regular Radiance's attacks are much slower, which meant that I would often get ahead of myself and take so many unnecessary hits. Eventually though, I get my act together, and arrive at the final phase, where I completely forget how it works and wait for her to move, before just hitting her once and concluding the fight. After 1 more round of cutscenes and credits, I unlock the Dream No More achievement. Achievement number 63, at 12 hours, 11 minutes and 36 seconds, putting me resoundingly at the bottom of the speedrun leaderboard, but there nonetheless. I quickly go into the achievement list in the menu to confirm I got everything, before finally closing the game and going to bed. Hi there, welcome to the end of the video. It was a very long one, so I do appreciate you making it all the way here. I had a blast attempting this challenge, and it certainly feels very fulfilling to actually beat Pantheon 5 for once. If you want to give this run a go, good luck. You can find my map in the description or on the card on screen. And while you're here, why not check out one of my other videos? They're pretty good, if I do say so myself. Anyway, I have another video in the works, so look forward to seeing that. Catch you later.